Oh, yes. This one's loving it. Third fish. Life is good! That wasn't really good acting, was it? Yeah, I had that on before I pressed play. Anyway, welcome to the show, folks. Video number 1, day 1 of filming. Welcome to NTS Fishing. And I'm calling it NTS Fishing because I'm the not too serious angler. Anyway, today, folks, we're out here doing a little bit of bottom bouncing on the mighty Ottawa River, using night crawlers and worm harness, and we're having some fun. I'm out here by myself today. I came out here yesterday with my wife, scoped it out, picked up a couple fish. I was snap jigging them, and look at me getting all technical. And I just told you I wasn't too serious, and I'm using technical terms. Too much time watching Tom Boyley and Jay Siemens and Clayton Schick, I suppose. Anyway, hats off to those guys. I love watching those guys. They're doing a really good job. I spend a lot of time watching them when I'm not on the water, and I've actually learned a lot from those guys. And a couple of them I'm probably twice their age, but that's okay. They're good at what they do. But let's talk about me and what we're doing here today. We're up on a little bit of a hump, cigar shaped, about 25 feet below the surface. It's October the 19th. The water temperature right now is 59 degrees. Yesterday my wife and I came out on the surface anyway. It was 62, but it was a sunny day. So that means, what does that mean? The magic number, 60, right? So 60 is when they're going to start to get a little more active. A lot of guys might disagree with me. A lot of guys might agree with me, but that's been my experience, especially on this water body here. The colder it gets, I find that the more active these fish will get here on the Ottawa River. The Ottawa River is controlled by dams, and obviously the dam has an influence over the water temperature, believe it or not, and it also has an influence over the depth of the water on a daily basis, which makes things a little bit challenging. But those of us who fish it, we figured it out. So today's presentation, we're going to keep it real simple here. Bottom bouncer, a little bit of a lead down to a spinner and a worm harness. This is a factory lead right out of the box. I used to tie them myself, but I don't anymore because I find these work just as good. But anyway, we're going to stay tuned here, I hope, folks, and we're going to catch a couple more fish and put them in the boat. Have some fun. Definitely a little better than what I've been picking up earlier in the day. This one's not too bad. I don't know, probably 16, maybe 17. Put them in the tub and then we'll keep on here doing a little bit of, like I said, doing a little bit of bottom bouncing on a hump here in the middle of the Ottawa River in October. Fish on! One thing to consider, folks, is when you're hooking up your worm, you have to spend a very long time making sure that this is on exactly correct. That front hook has to be so precise in the positioning on the worm that if you don't get exactly right, you're never going to catch a fish. No, no, no. I've caught thousands of fish on downriggers. It's not that complicated. You take the front hook and you put it somewhere around the head. I usually leave about 1 centimeter up. And then this is the only critical part. This is the only critical part. Just make sure that when you hook it, you don't hook it how it naturally lies. Okay? Because then that's going to bunch up when he extends, and essentially you're going to get a big spin. So essentially what I'm talking about here is when you take your bite for your second hook, just bring it up a little bit so that you actually have a little bit of slack between the two hooks. Now when he stretches out in the water, there he goes. Ooh, magic. That's how he's going to ride. All right? Don't overthink it. Hook up the worm, get it back in the water. So I just wanted to take a minute here to explain how I've gone about locating fish today. I've been fishing this river on and off for 30 years, and quite truthfully, I don't think I've ever fished this hump. But I studied the chart yesterday when I was out with my wife, and I found it, and it looked pretty good. And it's a long, long hump. It's kind of the shape of a cigar. So basically what I've done is I've come out here using side imaging, and I'm trying to locate my pods of fish. Because they'll be sitting on the top of this right now, or even around the edge. They're a little bit fussy about where they're going to go, especially on the Ottawa, because you got, like I said in a previous clip, you got influence of dam, which is essentially your water level and water temperature. So it's a little bit of an animal, a little bit of a beast, if you will, to fish. But those of us who fish it regularly, we like to think we have it figured out. But in this case here, essentially what I'm doing is I'm going along, and if I find something that interests me, like those, then I'm going to essentially just mark it. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my map. And you can see that I have a couple waypoints on there already. And now I've basically started to establish my track. So those are a couple waypoints I made before I started filming this segment here of a couple of pods of fish that I located. And now I'm essentially starting my trolling with my bottom bouncer, moving along real slow. And you can kind of make out, I hope you can make out this little bit of a hump that I'm fishing here. And notice it's surrounded by a lot of deep water. There's 75 feet to the right there, 63 to the left, and this hump is coming up to 20 feet. Now, if you notice on the graph, it's sitting about 26, 29 because the water level is extremely high right now. We've had some rain, and I do believe that they've opened the dam up. So the water is about 5 feet higher than it usually is. Now, if I was real particular, if I've been running this river for the first time, I would obviously do my chart offset for depth and make sure that what I'm reading on the map is true and accurate. But like I said, I've been running this river since the late 80s, and there's really no need for me to do that. I know the spots that are dangerous even when the water is high and even when it's low. At least I like to think I do. So that's basically what I'm doing. We're getting up on a pattern here. I've been spending the whole afternoon up on this feature, or hump if you call, and I'm doing okay. I've got, I think, 6, maybe 8 fish by now, and I'm looking for a couple bigger ones to put in the tub and bring home for supper. The Ottawa River here is a little bit exclusive and unique in a lot of ways, because particularly this part of the Ottawa I'm fishing here is essentially like a lake. It doesn't have any current. So you're fishing it more like a typical mesotrophic lake in Northern Ontario, where I'm originally from. But yet if you go over there, if I scan to the left, that's the main current of the Ottawa River. And honestly, it's a different approach to fishing. And the Ottawa River is very unique in its own way, because you have a lot of changes to the water on a daily basis. There's 2 dams upriver. It controls the water level. You'll come out one day and humps that were 25 feet, we're now sitting at 20. In other words, 5 feet below the water versus sometimes 0. So it can be a hazard. You got to do your offset on your chart if you want to navigate it safely. Unless you've been out here for a lot of years like I have. But yeah, essentially what I've done is that I go along and do some side imaging, mark a couple waypoints, and then start my pattern. Bottom bouncing, I mean, this is something that's a lot of guys will have a debate about as well. I personally like to keep about a 45-degree angle down. You don't have to be right on the bottom. If you feel and see a couple ticks every now and then you're going to be good to go. And don't be afraid if you're sitting about 2-3 feet off the bottom. The fish will find that spinner, and as soon as they get their lips around that worm, it's a done deal. So we might even have a bit of a hit here now. We'll see how this goes. That was a little bit of a tick, tick, tick. And the problem, one of the problems when you're fishing the bottom bouncers here, guys, is yeah, that's definitely a fish. Just picked up another one here. A couple seconds after the last one. He doesn't feel much bigger, but yeah, it's still fun. You know, if I could come out here and catch a boatload of 13-inch walleye, I'm a happy man. This guy's a little bigger. I'll be putting him in the tub, and I'll probably be eating him tonight. My wife's making chili. What goes good with chili? Pickerel. Worm harnessing her up. Life's good. We're gonna put him in with his friends. I think they're anticipating his arrival. Well, that's 3 in the tub. I've boated probably 10 today. Trying to get a little bit bigger ones for the frying pan, obviously. So I'm gonna keep on the hunt for one more. That'll give me 4. See the math? 1, 4. Give me one more. Will give me 4. It's dinner time. Those who know, know. Anyway, just thought I'd give you guys a little bit of a spiel here. It's been about 12, maybe 15 minutes since I've had a hit. I just got reorganized after that last one. Made a bit of a mess of my rig, but anyway, fixed her up and I'm back on the pattern here. Essentially what I do when I come out to a feature like this time of year, talking late summer and into fall, and you can fish these humps. You can fish these humps quite late into fall depending on the water temperature. And a lot of guys will say, oh, you know, there's got to wait for the turn and oh, the current and blah blah blah, and it gets real scientific, and that may be the case if you're, you know, fishing for a $50,000 grand prize. Then you're going to take the time to pay attention to that. But me, I'm a leisure angler. I'm retired. I'll just come out and tinker, and I do like technology, but I don't get too focused on it like a lot of anglers, and nothing against those anglers that do. Like I said, a lot of these anglers are making a living out of it, and any advantage that they can get, they're going to use, and I would too. But for a middle-aged man such as myself out here for an afternoon of fishing, I wouldn't say I buy very basic stuff. I do buy fairly modern equipment, but it's not the high-end stuff like a lot of guys are running. It's good stuff, it's good quality stuff, but it's not high-end. I guess the point of my spiel is, if you want to come out and have fun and catch a couple fish, you don't need to worry about spending thousands and thousands of dollars on electronics. Spend some money on a good piece of electronics, and there's so many out there that are good on the market today. And honestly, I can't say I've used them all. Lowrance, I've fished Garmin, I've fished Humminbird over the years. As a matter of fact, one of my very first fish finders was a little wee Humminbird, and when the fish come up and the little number was there, everybody got excited, oh, fish at 7 feet. And meanwhile, they were so primitive in nature that who knows what, it could have been a stick, and you're like, oh, there was 100 fish on there, and you know what, they just weren't biting. Anyway, it didn't work out. So where I'm going with this spiel here now is essentially, when you get out to the lake, make a plan where you're going to fish and how you're going to fish it. I woke up this morning, I came out here and fished this yesterday with my wife. I knew where there's some fish were holding on it. Well, actually just marking a couple fish here right now. And I knew what I needed to do. Yesterday I was doing a little bit of snap jigging, and I picked up a couple, but because I was doing that on the feature here, I was also picking up some smallmouth. So I'm targeting specifically walleye because, well, I want to eat. So what I've decided to do is come back out today with some bottom bouncers. I went up to the local gas station, picked up a couple worms, and came out here and rigged them up, and now I'm hitting it. And I'm doing okay. I've been out here for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours now, and I've landed about 6 fish, and I've probably missed 2 or 3, which happens when you are bottom bouncing, especially the way I usually fish it. I don't usually fish my bottom bouncers with my rod in hand, which a lot of guys will do. And if you're right serious about it, and maybe competing with somebody in the boat, or just competing for money or having fun, you might want to do that, because definitely you can feel the bite a bit easier. But for me, I fish pretty rudimentary equipment. My whole setup I'm fishing with here today is probably about $150, $160 tops. I got a decent reel, a decent ambassador reel that I use for many applications, and I got a fishing rod that is a 7.7 X342 96B with a super ultralight tip with carbon fiber reinforced strength. No, folks, not happening. I'm fishing today with a good old ugly stick that I've had in my arsenal for many years. It's a flipping stick. I use it for catching pike with. I caught lots of big pike with it on Lake Nipigon last year. I've used it for flipping for bass. I've used it for straight out trolling, long lining, and I actually use it for bottom bouncing. Because it's not an issue of, and as far as I'm concerned, it's not an issue of having to be a very, very sensitive, high piece of equipment when you're bottom bouncing the way I do in the rod holder. That fish, particularly when they're aggressive, he's going to come up and he's going to hit it and he's going to pull, and you're going to notice it. And yeah, like I said, you get up, set your hook, a lot of times you're going to miss it, but those hooks on there are so razor sharp that 9 times out of 10 that fish is going to smack it and he's going to stay on there. As a matter of fact, one thing you do have to pay attention to when you're doing this type of fishing is you get a smaller fish, you know, those 12, 13, 14 inchers, they could be hooked up and swimming with you for 10, 15 minutes. I've already had one of those this morning. I was trolling around marking fish going, geez, how come I haven't caught a fish? How come I haven't caught a fish? Well, I went and tested my line, and sure enough, picked up on it, and there was a fish. I think I got a fish here right now. I'm going to go see if I can set that hook, and we'll see if we got one. Just hang tight there, and we'll see what's going to happen here. I was feeling him bouncing there. No, I don't think he's there. But again, that does happen. Sometimes there's a little bit of you'll get a little bit of a swipe, or they'll pull on it, or maybe they'll just swipe the last inch of your worm. Many different things can happen. I'm going to set it, see what happens here anyway. You guys are still with me, I hope. So yeah, this is a perfect example of what I was talking about while I was sitting here entertaining myself talking to you guys. I had this I had this little six maybe 7 incher that was probably been swimming along for the last 15 minutes, and here I was saying to you guys, hey, I haven't caught a fish in 12 minutes. Well, I did. Anyway, we're gonna get back to her here. Oh, here's another mess. Look at that. This is one of the problems of bottom bouncing, what I refer to as a first world problem. Don't get too excited about it. It's what's going to happen, especially when you got a 7-inch piece of bait on there swimming around with you. He's going to make a mess of it. Take the time and clean it up. Get your worm back on there. And while I got you here, let's take an opportunity to talk about the rig I'm using here today. I got a nice bottom bouncer. I don't know, it's probably a 1 ouncer. I don't know, 1.72 grain ounce with titanium levers and whatever. It's a bottom bouncer. It's probably about 1 ounce, maybe 2 ounces. I don't know. It's pretty heavy. I got small ones, I got big ones, I got all sorts. Sometimes if I'm going to go for a little bit more of a finesse presentation, I'm going to go a little slower. I find that the bottom bouncer is spooking, to fish, I'll reduce it. I'll go to a smaller one here. I don't know, what is this, maybe a ½ ounce, quarter ounce, I don't know. But today I'm clipping along at between half a mile and 1 mile per hour, depending on what I'm seeing on the graph. So I'm wanting to stay down right on the bottom, as tight as I can get. Now, when I say that, I don't mean you need to be seeing or feeling that tick, 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 tick every second. Yes, it is a bottom bouncer, but the application isn't necessarily having to do with maintaining contact with the bottom. I look at it more as a weight than anything, putting that weight down, and I can adjust it. Yes, sometimes I do. If I'm marking fish right on the bottom, I'll just make sure I'm ticking along real slow, and depending on how fussy they are, I might slow my speed right down, sometimes 3-4 mile an hour. But today, like I said, I'm averaging about 5 to a full mile an hour, depending on the wave condition and the wind. And I go drop it down, I feel a couple ticks, and then I pick it up. And I'm probably floating my gear probably 2 feet, maybe 2.5 feet above the bottom. And like I said before, the gear doesn't have to be anything fancy. I used to tie these myself when I was young and had all sorts of patience, which I don't have anymore. So I just go to the store and I buy them. This is just right out of the box, nothing fancy. I used to spend a lot of time making these with big leads, 5-foot leads, 6-foot leads, really thin line. But I found where I'm at in my age and stage of life, I just go to the store, I buy it, and I set it up, and I throw it out, and I catch fish. So yeah, that's basically the presentation today. Nothing fancy. Like I said, my lead here is probably about I don't know, 24, maybe 28 inches. If they're really fussy, you can put on a 4-foot, maybe a 5-foot. But again, because another factor is, folks, I'm fishing by myself. And if I have a 6-foot lead on, for example, it makes netting a little bit more complicated. Because then I got to stretch way out. And anyway, it's like Mr. Octopus trying to figure out how to thread a needle through a haystack. I don't know what that analogy really means, but I'm gonna go with it. But anyway, we're gonna carry on with the pattern here, and hopefully we'll catch up with you in a couple minutes when I got a fish on. But right now, I got to get this back in the water. You know, guys, I've been fishing for almost 50 years, if you count the early days of my fishing career when I was maybe 7, 8, 9. And it never ceases to amaze me just how excited I get every time I get a fish on. Doesn't matter how small or how big, I still just love it. So we're going to carry on with this pattern here, and hopefully we'll pick up a couple more. It's nice that I can keep getting up to deal with my worm harness and putting on a new worm and stuff, because it's cold out here, man, but we're having fun. Well, I've hit that hump pretty hard for the last 2 hours. We're going to move up to a point here that has some real nice characteristics, and we're going to give her a go for my last half hour of the day here. So in the meantime, let's give Mr. Show, VMAX Show that is, a little run, and let's go have some fun. Well, 47 seconds and we're here. We're on our new location here. If you notice, I've fished this a couple times this fall, and it's been producing for us, but we'll see, every day is different. Like I said, the water temperature has changed overnight, and we got overcast day here. You'll see it's gonna start to get a little shallower here, and usually we'll mark a couple fish, but I just want to point out one thing here as of note. If you guys have noticed that when I was fishing that last spot, that hump, and in this one, I always have my chart up at least one of my finders here, because I'm a big I'm a big supporter of following contours very, very tightly. And that might seem a little bit technical for guys out here who's having fun, which is true. But it's one thing that I find that's very, very important. If you're following that contour really, really tightly, if fish are stacked at that certain temperature, they're there for a reason. Now, it could be because of its bait fish are hanging around there. It could be water temperature. It could be current. It could be a lot of different things. But normally, what I find, and again, this is open for debate. If anybody wants to debate anything I have to say, by all means, make a comment. I love a healthy debate. But as far as I'm concerned, holding tight to a contour is absolutely critical, especially if you find them at a certain depth. And if they're all holding on that ledge, then you're going to stay on that contour. So that's what I do. I don't really rely on just the depth to find out where I am. The technology is there, and yeah, I've already made a point of saying I'm not a big technology guy, but some of the things I do use, and I do find them very handy. And in particular, this one here, if you can see where I'm following that contour on the 27, right at the middle, and I'll turn and I'll follow it all the way out to the right there. And it's usually, you'll see on the inside corner of that 27, if you see up in the center of the screen there, that's where I've been catching the majority of my fish on this spot this season. Hopefully it'll won't let me down here in the next couple minutes. As soon as I make that turn, we'll have one on and I'll have some more footage for you. Yep. Just off the inside of that corner, like I showed you on the graph. I don't make this stuff up, folks. This is just the way it is. When you're as skilled as angler as I am, when you say you're going to catch a fish, you catch a fish. Oh, I'm just joking. What do we got here? Yeah, that might be my last one for dinner. I think that'll do it right there. Wow, that was a lot of fun, guys. You know what? That was a good couple hours on the water. Had an opportunity for me to shoot my very first YouTube video. I've been meaning to do it for years. As you can tell, there's no high-speed cameras. Matter of fact, I shot this whole thing with my phone. But that's okay. We'll see how it goes. I get 1 or 2 viewers. Whoop. I'll be happy. Anyway, let's get him in the tub. That's my 4, guys. I really appreciate you folks for watching. Tomorrow or maybe the next day, I think I'll dedicate my time and energy to doing some fall smallmouth fishing here on the river, and we'll fire up a new video. But in the meantime, I really hope that I'm going to have some success with this video. I enjoy doing it. I don't take life too serious. Because you know what? Life is hard. Have fun. And please support your troops. We'll see you guys later.